Hey, Brad Redding here to do an analysis of Scott Stallings' golf swing. Scott's from my hometown in Knoxville, Tennessee. A great player, obviously. Just picked up his third tour win. Everyone kind of knew Scott was going to be a great player on the highest stage on the PGA Tour. He is incredibly athletic, a big guy, 6'2", 6'3", very strong, and has always hit the golf ball a long way. 310, 320, 330. I've seen him hit golf balls in excess of 330 yards. Watched him play a lot as an amateur and watched him play a lot as a collegiate player, and have enjoyed watching him play on tour. Some of the things that I do when I analyze a golf swing, I've drawn some lines here, and these are just reference points that I kind of look at and see great players do in their golf swings. In the left side, I've drawn a little box around his head. I've drawn a line at the shaft, and I've drawn some lines on the outside of his hips, which goes from his right hip to the outside of his right foot, and then again, just outside his left hip down to the outside of his left foot. And just reference lines that I look at and see how the body moves and see how the club moves. On the right, I've got a line that obviously goes with the shaft plane. That's an important one for me. Maybe the most important one. A line going from the out just above his rear end to the top of his head. A line on the top of his head and one to the build of his cap, and then the blue line, which is kind of on his rear end. Give me some reference points on what's going on in the swing. Some of the things I like is this. The shaft does go up through his left eye in the left frame. If I drew a line up the shaft, you go through his left eye. I like that. I don't want the shaft to be too far forward. Don't want to be too far back. It obviously does not work in line with his left arm right here. That's a fallacy, I think, that some amateurs believe. It should not be that way. It should go up more through your left eye. Head's kind of centered, not leaning too far left or too far right. And again, we'll look at the blue lines, as far as how his body moves in the backswing. On the right, bending forward from his hips, a little bit of knee flex. The weight's predominantly on the balls of his feet, maybe all over the arches, if you will. And the shaft plane, I think, goes roughly through his hips, just above his hips, through his waist, which I think is kind of perfect. What I look for in the backswing, on the right side, I like that club to move back along that shaft plane, which his does. It gets predominantly, for the most part, above and pretty parallel. It's not too flat, maybe a little upright there, but I'd rather see a little bit upright for him, because he used to be a very big hooker of the golf ball, and he's turned into more of a fader of the golf ball now. But at the top, the club once again gets more above and parallel to the shaft plane at the top of the swing, which I kind of like. Especially for guys that have better players that have tended to get more across the line, which Scott used to be. His club was pointed much more to the left, to the right, this way. And what he would do on the way down is drop back to the inside. He could come too far from the inside, have to use his hands to square the face up, because when the club comes too much from the inside, the face tends to open. Well, what Scott does is he throws the club more above and parallel, and on the way down, gets the club more on top of the plane, which means the face now is actually closing. So there'd be no need to actually use his hands to impact. He actually can stabilize that club face through impact and hit more of a fade. How his body works, I think, is really great. There's several stages here of his head movement on the way down. One, it never goes up; it always goes down. So here we are at the top of his backswing, and his head has already gone down. It didn't go back, because the build of the cap is still on that front line, and on the way down, he'll go down even more. Which again, I think is a trait of really great golfers. Goes down again. Now, you can see that on the way back, his rear end makes a move where it kind of goes deeper into that blue line. It's just outside that blue line. And on the way down, lowering his head again, the left hip is even more behind that line on the way down. Again, a trait of really good golfers that are very long and Scott definitely is long. Now what that helps him do, creates lots of room here for his arms. He's got a lot of room there to stabilize the club face through impact. If it got trapped behind him, which it used to, he'd have to use his hands. There wasn't enough room for him to swing the club through, so he'd use his hands to flip the club over. On the left side, again, on the way back, I like how his head stays pretty much in that box. And if I drew that line on his right hip, you can see it's kind of stayed in that same angle. It hasn't moved left or right, which I think is a great trait of golfers. Now, there's no question Scott on the way down, his head tends to go back a little bit. That's a leftover from his old golf swing where he kind of came from the inside too much, and he had to go backwards a little bit. But he's such a strong guy with incredible lag there. He delivers the club into the back of the golf ball in what I would call a textbook impact. It doesn't get much better than that. Flat left wrist, bent right wrist, shafting him forward. Very solid contact, catching more ball than ground, which I think is a great trait in high level golfers. Not a lot of rotation out of the club face there. So he's able to hit the ball pretty straight, maybe a slight cut or slight fade. So just some of the lines that I use to analyze golf swings, and this is definitely one of my favorites. I think Scott's got a lot of great traits in his golf swing that a lot of better players can learn from, and thought you guys would like to see how I look at golf swings and see a look at a really good player like Scott Stallings.